The ureter is a muscular tube responsible for transmitting secreted urine from our kidneys down to the urinary bladder. As we can see, this tube has two portions: a superior portion that is located within the abdominal cavity and an inferior portion that is located within the pelvic cavity. These tubes are located bilaterally, so we will have one on the left side and one on the right side of our abdominal and pelvic cavities. Within this tube, there is smooth muscle, which is going to be capable of a wave-like contraction that is known as peristalsis. And this is going to help propel the urine from the kidney all the way down to the urinary bladder. And this functionality is very advantageous as we're not always upright, even though we are bipedal. We often will lie down on our backs or on our sides while sleeping, but we still want to have the urine from our kidneys to reach the bladder. Particularly an astronaut is very appreciative of this ability, as they will be able to still urinate even in the absence of gravity up in space. Now, along the path of the ureter, there are going to be three different points where it can become constricted or blocked. The first of these is at the junction superiorly of the renal pelvis with the ureter, so at the very beginning of this tube. All of the filtered urine from the kidney that is filtered up here in the renal cortex is going to come down through the medullary pyramids into a minor calyx, then into a major calyx, until it reaches this renal pelvis to then leave the kidney. During development, there may be a developmental defect at this point between the pelvis and the ureter that would lead to a blockage or a closure of the lumen within this hollow tube. Now imagine that without an exit path for all of that fluid, it is going to back up, increase pressure within the kidney, which can actually shut it down and cause renal failure. And that can be a potentially fatal condition. The second point of possible constriction is to be the point where the ureter crosses over the pelvic inlet or the pelvic brim. And this is really going to be an obstruction that could be caused either by an enlargement of the underlying vessels or due to an obstruction caused by the internal contents of the abdominal cavity constricting and pushing down on top. The third and the last point of potential constriction is where the ureter actually meets up with the urinary bladder. And if we look inside of the actual bladder, we can see that this muscular tube is going to enter through the wall at a slight angle. And in a healthy individual, we're going to see the gradual buildup and filling within the bladder is going to cause an increase of pressure on the wall, which can close off this opening and prevent some of the regurgitation of the fluid back up into the ureter. However, there may also be a potential developmental defect within this muscular wall, leading to either a small opening or a permanently blocked opening, but then be too restricted. And again, that is going to cause a backup of fluid and the pressure that could then come back up the system and eventually shut down the kidneys, similar to the defect at the uretopelvic junction.